Hello, good morning and welcome back to the Fish Locker out on the boat. Out on a stunning flat calm day on the boat. We've got small tides today, so our plan is we're going to go and try some wrecks. Try some offshore wrecks. The first thing that we need to do is we need to try and find some bait. We've just come up on a patch. All these here, probably going to be pilchards. The ones in between, the spread out ones, are probably going to be mackerel. But those patches are going to be pilchards. Try about 10 metres, mate. With a thick patch of fish coming through at 10 metres there. Yeah, we're going to have a northerly wind coming in pretty much all day. Now we've got about 2 more hours of the tide, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and catch some mackerel, maybe do a little bit of lure fishing on a reef while we wait for the tide to turn, and then go and try some wrecks, either anchoring or drifting. As usual, Chris and I will explain the rigs, the rods, the tactics and everything as we are doing it. Just wish us luck. Oh, got him. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lost one on the way up. Oh, lost 2 on the way up. That's what we're after. Just come to a little patch of reef. I'm going to try and find some bait. At the same time, might actually fish with some little jigs. See if there aren't some pollock or some bass about. There's absolutely no point going out to the wrecks at this time. Of course, the tide's only got another hour or so before it turns. So we'll get the anchor set, get fishing, and then when the tide comes slack, you just have to reset it all again. Not bad size one, that. Tight on the bottom line.
Well, the ones we had yesterday were pretty big.
That's going to be the stamp of them down there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Stacks of them the other day like this. I've shown this in videos before. Fish will be concentrated on one part of the reef, and it's usually like the back side of a rock, or as the tide leads up or something. We'll go around and drift that again.
Yeah, I saw it take the lure then.
It's alive with a...
That's a right under the boat.
See, I thought this was sluggish. Pouting.
Not big.
Yeah, man's a pouting. That's a great conger bait. Just getting that short drift over that key area. There's no point carrying on now. Just loop back round and do it again. We've had a bit of a fish around inshore and we've got a nice bucket of mackerel. The tide has dropped off to slack water now. I've explained this in videos before that the tide moves differently depending on your distance from the shore. It's low tide slack now. As in you get a low slack and a high slack. That's a period right on low tide there is no tidal movement. Well, as soon as you get a couple miles offshore, it's a couple of hours later. So it's low tide here now. If we go 6 miles off, it's going to be low tide there in an hour. So we're going to run off to the wrecks, do a little bit of drifting over slack water out there, and then when the tide turns again, we'll put the anchor down. You're saying pouting?
Yeah, it's got to be.
That's the only problem. Fishing this deep with a little tiny spooled reel, isn't it? Just takes forever for him to come up. Of course it is. Of course it is. What we're doing here is we're just trying out a new mark. One of the local commercial fishermen gave me some numbers and we're just testing it out on the way. Some of these marks aren't even on the charts, so it took like a little bit of exploring. That was the first drift. We'll go around and drift it again. Flubber dub dub. I'll tell you what, yours isn't a bad one though.
There you go.
There you are.
Cheers.
Missed the strike then.
Yeah, I'll get quite a few taps. Got to be loads of pouting down there. Yeah.
Got to be a link down there then.
Got it.
Go on, take it. Got you.
Oh, you're stopping a link on that.
They're good fun to try. Oh, it's come off.
Hang on.
Oh, hello. That's a better fish.
Oh. That's not a pound.
Told you. That was off the bottom. I lost the pouting and dropped back down. Felt the heat. Clicked on and picked it up off the wreck.
Why don't you put a speed jig down there?
Yeah.
Oh, nice one. Jesus.
That's a nice fish.
On that little rod.
Yeah. And you doubted me. He's come up from the depths.
Explicit.
Yeah. I'm not surprised I dragged it up. Wasn't lost in it. Let you rub it. Yeah. There you are. Now that I'm not going to say that shouldn't have happened because we're on bang on slack water and we're fishing with lures for pollock, but it just goes to show he's blind in one eye. Seen that?
Okay.
But yeah, you saw it, everything from start to finish on that. Just fishing until the mucks weren't coming out. And this is a 200 gram sidewinder slow jig. A stonking pollock. If you can see all these blisters on his side and why his eyes are slightly bulging, that's barotrauma. It's the same as like when the diver gets the bends. When he comes up from that depth, because we're fishing in 90 metres of water here. But yeah, that was on a conflict. It's a conflict 200 gram. And that's a Pen Fathom low profile. And I've got, I think it's 25 or 30 pound braid on there. And a 25 pound fluoro leader. Go around and try that again.
Yeah.
Like I say, this little patch of wreck here, there's nothing on the charts. So the first thing that we did when we come to where we thought it was is you gridded round, and every time that I steam past it, when we start and when we lose it, I'm mapping it with waypoints. So I'll map how big the wreck is. Oh, there's a fish.
Pollock.
Same place again.
Yeah.
Obviously sat on back side of wreck, aren't they? Yeah, it's colour.
Pollock.
Yeah.
Nice.
Top colour of yours, isn't it, Nathan?
A pollock?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Double! Same spot at wreck as last night.
Yeah. Whose is bigger? That's
Yours is bigger.
Of course it is. That was on speed jig. Oh, you?
That was it. Well, that was it. Mine was a flutter jig. The different jigs that we're using. My jig here, you jig it up and you let it flutter down, so it goes up and it flutters. And yours is a speed jig. Yours is just to go up in speed.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. Neither of these are going to go back.
No.
Fishing in this depth of water, pollock, they blow quite badly and in their swim bladders. The change in pressure means that by the time you've got them to the surface, they won't go back anywhere. And for anyone that's going to ask, I do use a descender for some fish. But when they're blistering down their skin, there's more than just the swim bladder. There's internal damage to them. So the good thing is though, they're really good eating. To start off with, I was using a 200 gram jig. Now it's quite heavy. You've switched down to 100, but yours is a speed jig. It's about fishing with the lightest lure that you can get away with for the tidal conditions, just because you get a better movement of the lure. So if I find out that I can't work this lure because it's lighter, I'll have to go back to a heavier one. Also, you'll notice the different way that Chris and I are working the lures, because they're different types of lures. Chris's has to be brought in faster than mine because his is a speed jig, mine's a flutter jig.
Pollock.
Burn on.
Such a pain in it for a pattern.
I can get all the way up and all the way down again before we over the pollock. Oh, that found a bit of structure.
You get it back?
Sure, yeah. Oh, and a fish.
Pattern?
Oh, I don't know. Could him to be down there.
Right then.
A balloon. Oh, baby. What a stunner of a day it's turned out to be. Well, we've got to the first wreck that we want to try, and I'm just drifting over it to see which direction we're going to drift. Chris has dropped down with a jig just to see if he can pick a pollock up as we go past, and in a minute I'm going to go and put the anchor down. Now, I've shown this in a lot of videos about anchoring wrecks. Now, I've got a 5 kilo plough anchor. I've got a 17-foot boat, so I've got like 20-25 feet of chain. All you need to make sure is you need to make as much chain as possible would be good. But you need more weight in chain than your weight of anchor. That comes into play when you're using an Alderney ring and a buoy to haul your anchor. What I'll do is I'll tag into the description of this video a video about how to anchor a wreck. We'll loop back round, I'll set the anchor down, and we'll see how we get on. Oh, stunner of a day. If the wind can stay like this for the rest of the day, we should be alright, because we've got wind almost and tide together. Right. Thread on the Alderney ring and the buoy, and I just use a batten of wood. Loop it on. The reason why I use this is twofold. It keeps the anchor buoy away from the bow of the boat, so if anybody else is steaming around they can see it. But also, if there is any swell, instead of snatching at the front of the boat, which can trip your anchor out, the Alderney ring and the buoy cushions it. Just tie her off there. Tie her off there to an after cleat, like tighten the rope up, because at the moment the rope, because it's dry, will be floating like that, and we want to pull it straight. Currently we are 40 metres from the wreck. As that rope tightens up, I want us to be maybe 10 metres in front of it, so that when we drop our baits down off the boat, they drop into the wreck. Effectively, I'm anchored backwards. I do that because I do all the work at the back of the boat here rather than through that little hatch. And all I'll do is when we've tightened up like this, I just pass the rope over the front, tie it off to the cleat up there. Then all you need to do is just let that line go and you should swing round. And as we swing round, we should be laid right up with the stern of the boat looking up against the wreck. 26 metres from the wreck. 22 metres from the wreck. Yeah, that might work. We'll let the boat swing around and find its settle, and then we'll drop some baits off the back. We're sat nicely at anchor now, and we are about 15 metres from the wreck. So the wreck stretched out from left to right about 15 metres behind the back of the boat. We are in 95 metres of water, so as we're dropping down, the tide should carry our baits to just up to the wreck. You can even trot them back. The rigs that I'm going to start off with is just a one hook wrecking rig, and it's baited with one of the fresh mackerel that we caught earlier. Now all I've got on here, the rod and the reel that I'm using, it's a Regiment 3 solid carbon. The Regiment 3 solid carbon, it's a Finno Marquesa. The braid that I've got, £60 braid, and I've got a £100 rubbing leader. And that's just because the rubbing leader is because we're going to be fishing into the snaggy stuff, we're going to be fishing into a wreck. Braid doesn't have very good abrasion resistance, mono does. So use a heavier rubbing leader just in case it comes in contact with any of the wreck or the rocks. The hooks that I'm using are 10-0s and 12-0s because the fish we're fishing for are big fish. I'm still on sand. You can feel by bouncing the lead what the seabed's like. If it's a soft thud, it's sand or mud that the lead's landing on. If it's like a hard bang, it's rock or wreck. So I know that this wreck is surrounded by sand. So I know that by lifting it and dropping it like that, if I'm getting a soft thud, my rig, my bait is on the sand in front of the wreck, which is good, which is where I want it, because I want the fish to come, the smell of my bait, the tide should carry into the wreck and the fish should come out after the bait. Fish. Yep. Oh, he's off. That's bigger than all that. Didn't feel like a ling. Don't know if you saw that bite there. I've lifted into it, but there's every good chance that the fish just had hold of the bait and didn't find the hook. Now, it's a toss-up with whether or not you leave your rig down there and try and catch it, but you won't know if the bait's missing. But generally I'll give it another 30 seconds, and if your bite doesn't come back, bring your rig in, check your bait, because otherwise you're fishing with no bait. The smaller eels, they will come on the feed. Will come on the feed before the big ones because they're generally more active. And unfortunately, when you're fishing with big baits and big hooks, you don't always get them in the mouth. They'll get hold of a bait and just rag it and hold on. So like as there, them 2 times, I've lifted into a bite, had it on for a couple of seconds, and all that's happened is the fish has just opened its mouth like that and let go. And you have to fish through the small ones to get to the big ones. So with any luck, the scent of our baits and the other fish rooting about feeding should bring them out. We are coming up to the time of year when sharks arrive. So you might see that we've run a shark bait out to the back. That's on this rod here. It might turn up a bonus fish.
Go on. Got that one. Yeah.
It's in the wreck now. Yeah.
Met that.
Let's eat out. Fish there. Just getting
Hard
out.
work tonight.
Got it. We'll go. Fish it?
Yeah.
Oh, I get it out. It's happened twice now that we've hooked into good fish, but because we're right tight into the wreck, they're just immediately binding us up. So I'm going to pull in a little bit of rope and take us, if this is the wreck and this is us now, we're dropping back into it. I'm going to take us further forward so our baits drop down in front of it. We just can't seem to get them on the hook. We must have had decent bites from half a dozen fish, latched into them, had them on for 10 seconds and then out. Yep. Get out.
Oh,
How is that possible? Get it. Right, well eventually I did manage to get hold of one of them, and it is a nice ling. But that was by scaling the hooks and the baits right down. So this is an 8-0. An 8-0 and a smaller bait. This here is its stomach contents, and that's barotrauma that's done that. Yeah. There's the hook. There is every good chance that all these really aggressive bites that we're getting and we're not hooking up, it could be a pack of little spur dogs. Usually if you're fishing with light line and smaller hooks, you'd latch into them and then bite you off, but we're using 200-pound mono for our hook lengths. I've just had a series of really good bites, and what it's turned out to be is I've reeled it in and this is on there. Now I didn't put this down as bait. What's happened is this pouting has eaten my bait and something bigger has taken a proper bite out of him there. Now that type of clean bite like that, I would say that's a member of the shark species. It could be a taupe or a big spur dog. Yeah. It's just a clean cut right through. It's not a conger, it's not a ling. So that is another species that might be down there. Still getting bites. Still sat alright on the wreck. Fingers crossed we can pull one out. Good man, nice fish. Even though we're fishing the best part of 18 metres off the wreck, there is bits of wreckage strewn about the place. Chris has hooked a real nice fish there. Of course he wasn't able to get it up out of the wreck enough because it was a big one. So I managed to get hold of a piece of something. Ling don't usually do that. That'll be a conger. If it bolts for a hole, 9 times out of 10 it's a conger. Going to have to be right on them. Down there. Right, after a fair bit of time of messing around, finally managed to get hold of one of them, a decent one. So there you go. That is a slippery devil, but a nice one all the same. There you go. One tail slapping is down. Clean deck off now. Wind spun round, I don't know if you can see, it's picked up a bit. Wind spun round and we've swung off the wreck. So I was like, right, we'll pull the anchor up, we'll go and re-anchor because we're not going to catch any fish. And then just as I was bringing the rods in, another little link. We'll get this guy dispatched and bled off. But yeah, this is the effects of barotrauma. I've repositioned the boat onto the wreck. Now it all just depends on how much this wind wants to swing around. If it keeps swinging all the way around, we're just going to get swinged off it again. But it might give us a chance of getting one more fish out. We're not going in that wreck, no chance. Oh, it's off. It's gone. Definitely an eel then. Oh, and it's gone. How is that possible? Literally nearly had a rod. Literally nearly had a rod.
Some start, really.
Oh no. Spitting out. Lots of squid that. So whoever's got squid on, that's decent. Well, they're there, we're in the right spot again. Come all the way to slack water now, so the boat's just swinging around in the wind. There's no way that you can fish a wreck like that just because you're swinging about so much. So we brought the lines in, we've tied it down, I'm going to pull the anchor up. I'm going to try another wreck just nearby actually with some lures, with some jigs and some soft plastic. I managed to have picked up a few seagulls. Let's get that anchor up. They like these slow jigs, don't they?
Oh yeah.
A little bit too much drift and a very snaggy wreck covered in a few pieces of net. How many rigs have you lost? One? Two. Yeah, we've both lost tackle. We're going to try something else. We'll have one last little thrash about with the lures. Ballan wrasse. Oh, mackerel. Yeah. You're very lucky. I'll just fall into the little spinner. I don't know if you can hear that roar of the engine. There is a very high powered speedboat kicking about around the bay. There we go. I don't mind finishing on a few nice little fish. We'll carry this drift on for maybe another 50-60 yards. See if we can't pluck out a couple more fish. Like Chris was saying there, we're using little tiny lures. Generally you do pick up the small fish as well. But my philosophy is if there's only small fish there, I at least want to be able to catch them. And you can only catch what's there. If we catch anything else worth showing, we'll put it in. If we don't, then we won't. I hope you've enjoyed joining us. I hope you found it interesting. All the very best. See you later.